Good morning. My name is Chris Adam with Youth Pleasure Employers, and I'm delighted to be joined by Rich, the founder of Cheddar Creative. Hello, Rich.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for giving up your time this morning. And I guess my start of 10 question really has to be, can you tell us about Cheddar Creative and what it is you do?
Oh, well, it's a very, very broad church that we cover. We're a full service creative agency. So the way we pitch it is kind of anything creative related. If we don't do it directly ourselves in-house, then we know someone in our little black book of contacts that does. So video, animation, web design, logo, branding, copywriting, email marketing. Marketing is a side we don't steer away from, but we are far more interested in the design side of things. And it's all kind of brand building is how we package it. Essentially, I think marketing has a bit of a negative connotation around being very salesy and kind of smashing people over their head with ads and bombarding them. And we're more the softer side and using design to help people build brands, essentially.
Brilliant, thank you. And as you said that, I know it's never easy to concisely summarize what your business does, and in a couple of sentences, but I think you did a great job of it there. And if you had to sort of to touch on maybe some of the different roles within Cheddar that sort of, as I say, that make all these different things happen, what kind of sort of roles do you have within the organization?
Well, it's quite an interesting split actually, because we're a creative agency. So you immediately assume, well, that's designers, graphic designers, very creative artists almost. But I feel like all the roles are essentially creative, but we have obviously designers, illustrators, animators, traditionally creative roles. But then we also have very technical roles, so web developers, well, the actual animation side and the video side, it's creative, but it's also technical. So that kind of put in both camps. And then we have what I would consider the kind of client management side. So that's probably more where I sit. And that is, it's all communication, it's all thinking creatively, but my role is much more about planning, project management, dealing directly with clients, and really being that liaison, I suppose, between what the client wants, what the technical guys need to know, what the creative guys need to know, and kind of being the glue that holds it all together. So there are so many different types of roles. So even if you feel like you're not particularly creative, doesn't mean you couldn't find a role within a creative agency.
Yeah. And sort of going on from that, if a lot of people were to stereotypically imagine sort of, as you say, a creative agency and the kind of work environment and ethos, they probably instantly imagine that it's, when I say a little bit crazy, I mean that in a good way. You've got all these creative people, as I say, all of these ideas of, flying around, if you were to compare sort of that image to actually what it's like to, as I say, be with him, what is the kind of ethos and the work environment like?
I think it can be a bit chaotic, and I think certainly the marketing industry that I worked in a few years ago, in which I kind of wanted to escape from and do something a little bit different, hence the whole design-driven Cheddar. I think there was a real move towards the corporate side of things. I think marketing agencies almost became a little bit embarrassed to say, well, we are very creative, and that can be a bit crazy because it's just ideas, and then trying to filter through those ideas to find good ideas that are actually going to help businesses. And there just seemed to become this move away from just being very creative driven and more towards the corporate. So suddenly all these jargony buzzwords started creeping in about KPIs and strategy and results and all this kind of stuff. And I think where we've tried to go with Cheddar is almost going back to the kind of old days of advertising, when if you've watched things like Mad Men, where they're just sitting around drinking all day, which we kind of don't do that, unfortunately. But it was this whole thing about where is the inspiration going to come from? And, sitting rigidly at your desk from 9 till 5 in quite a corporate environment isn't conducive to coming up with those fresh, original ideas that are actually, maybe going to change the world. So we are a little bit crazy and a little bit chaotic, but we're not sitting around drinking all day and doing all the kind of crazy excesses that the TV shows might encourage you to believe. But there is definitely a process. Our website talks a little bit about the process we go through. We kind of use design thinking, and it's very much an iterative process about finding out as much information as you can, distilling that into insights that you can actually use in a meaningful way, and then testing that with actual users, finding out, does it work? Do people using this website, product, whatever it is, are they using it in the way we think they are? And if they're not, let's feed that back into the process and kind of start again. So it's very much a sort of test and learn approach.
That's really interesting, because I was going to go on to, and sort of, I guess the test and learn approach will explain some of these. But as you sort of said, obviously creativity is a clear sort of trait that's needed. Some of the technical skills, as you say, within some of maybe the more IT based roles, are needed. But what are some of the sort of soft skills that maybe your employees have that actually sort of someone within this industry needs as well?
Well, soft skills are huge. It's really all we focus on. So yeah, it's great if you are familiar with Adobe Creative Cloud and you are an expert in Illustrator and Photoshop or Premiere Pro, whatever it is. But we do feel the hard skills, you can learn those and you can pick them up pretty quickly. So for us, it is all about the soft skills. It's all about the attitude. We're very much about shared values. So our model is based around partnering with other subcontractors, freelancers. We don't actually have a huge full-time permanent team. So what we look for when we partner with someone is those shared values. And I'd say probably top of the list is curiosity. I think if you're a naturally curious person, if like me, when I was a kid, if I was given a toy, first thing I did was take it apart to try and figure out, well, how does it work? Is there a motor in here? Like, what's going on? Ruined a lot of toys. But it was just this natural curiosity of I was just constantly like, why? But why does that work? And why? And how can we make that better? And so I think curiosity, I think grit is very much you can't really teach it. It's not something that you'd come through school sort of learning grit and determination, but being a very gritty person, like someone that just doesn't give up at the first hurdle. You do have to be very thick-skinned in this industry because you're getting feedback and critiqued all the time, often by people that you might feel, well, they're not qualified to tell me that this is a bad design. So you do have to be quite thick-skinned. Good sense of humor, being able to get on with people, just being able to kind of read people and communicate. So I guess empathy, if you're working within a team, you have to know what makes all your fellow team members tick so that you can communicate with them effectively. But then if you're working on a client project, it can almost be a little bit schizophrenic sometimes, because you're having to think, okay, right, so this client works in this sector, let's say shipping and haulage, which you may know absolutely nothing about. But you have to be able to put yourself into the mindset of, okay, so I'm a customer looking to use a shipping company. What are my questions? What do I need to know? What problems am I trying to solve? So you have to be able to almost project yourself into someone else's shoes and really use kind of empathy to follow that journey through. So we've got a whole list of other soft skills, but I'd say those ones are at the top.
Thank you. That's really insightful. And I'm actually going to try and sort of, probe you for another insight here in terms of I feel that with the sort of the creative industry, it's one, if I'm a young person wanting to get into it, it's one of the few industries where, how do I put it, I can be doing lots of things proactively before I get into it. It's sort of, because of people's access to technology and, whether it be social media, different programs and stuff, people have got lots of opportunity to be creative. Whereas, if I was interested in being, I know, say, a doctor, I can't just wander in and try and do some work experience at the hospital, if you see what I mean. So from your perspective, if you've got maybe a young person who's looking to try and get into the industry and stuff, if you're looking at their CV, or you want to give them advice on what kind of things they should be doing to sort of help them get experience that they can, and to sort of, as I say, make themselves as employable as possible, what kind of insights and advice are you giving them?
Well, there are so many routes in. I mean, my route was certainly not linear. I kind of did wander in, to sort of use your analogy. My business partner, Cassie, she was much more linear, went to university, studied marketing, realized throughout that process that it was more the creative, the design side, was always doodling, very much a sort of artist, natural talent. Like some of the stuff she just sits and doodles during meetings. It's like, wow, frame that. So yeah, her path was much more linear, and that is one way to go. So if you know exactly what you want to do, you can study graphic design at high school. You could then go and do a graphic design or a marketing or a creative degree, then an internship, and then kind of get your foot in the door at an agency. we kind of also say, well, or just do it yourself. Why not straight out of, as long as you've got the qualifications and the confidence to back it up, go freelance, start your own company. I left it very late. I didn't start Cheddar until I was nearly 40. And my big regret is, why didn't I do it when I was 20? I mean, the argument there is I probably couldn't have done it when I was 20, because the technology, the accessibility, the barriers to entry. Whereas now, if you've got a mobile phone, an internet connection, and some good stuff going on up here, and potentially some of the hard skills to back it up, absolutely start your own business. It might seem scary, but it's just one problem to solve at a time, and suddenly you've got clients and away you go. But my career path, I just massively went around the houses and eventually had enough transferable skills and I guess enough life experience. I mean, that's the one thing I would really advise people is it's the life experience that really helps, because when you've been around lots of different businesses and you start to understand the commercial problems, and when clients come to us, it's normally, we want more business, we want to make more money, we're looking to double our sales. And it's always very sort of tangible, kind of like financial goals. But when you start stripping that back, it's kind of like, yeah, but how do we actually get you there? Like, you've asked us for a new website, but a new website probably isn't going to give you what you're looking for. So let's strip all that back. But you only are in a position to be able to understand that and sort of figure those things out when you've been around the block a few times. So I think if you are, not 45 like I'm about to be, then it's going to take you a little while to get that life experience. But to be that naturally curious person, there's lots of things online now. There's websites where you can actually take dummy briefs which have been set, and it would be problems like that where a business is asking you for X, Y, Z. How do you now go about solving it? And it may be that you decide to design a new website for them or a marketing campaign. So if you're not immediately able to start working on like real live briefs or projects for clients, there are websites where you could start testing your mettle a little bit. But really, I mean, I think it's just sort of doing as much as you can in sort of relevant areas. So there are obviously internships, apprenticeships, work experience, work placements, things like that. But off your own back, I don't know really. It probably is just sort of picking that one particular area that you are most interested and most passionate about, and then doing whatever you can to sort of build those skills. But it's, as I said, it really is the soft skills that we're more interested in. So kind of get your attitude sorted out, and then come and have a chat with us.
Thank you. But again, that's really insightful, and it's actually really interesting to hear sort of briefly from you, as I say, about the linear paths and the non-so linear paths and the benefits of each. And as I say, like for different people sort of watching this video who maybe have, as I say, different sort of career paths in mind or are unsure, it's really interesting to know that, as I say, they've got options on their routes.
Well, I had no clue. Just to kind of summarize and probably answer the previous question better. I mean, I just did things. I did languages at A level. Wasn't even sure if I wanted to stay on for sixth form, but I did, and I did languages. I think because the course was undersubscribed, and I'm one of very few people that had kind of done French and German. So then went to uni and did an IT degree. Had no idea. I hadn't even touched a computer at that point. First time I'd ever touched a computer was at university. And then had a few years doing sort of IT, project management, software programming, that kind of stuff, and just thought, this isn't me. Then took a break from that, went off and got into the film industry and did that for 8 years, writing scripts, working as a runner, working my way up to doing sort of various things, ended up producing a film and thought, well, this is it now. This is my dream job, my career from here on is filmmaker. And then realized it just doesn't pay. Like, you're putting all of your money in. So long story short, fell out of love with that quite quickly, and then had some transferable skills, managed to get a foot in the door at a local creative agency who needed someone that understood video and storytelling and all these other things that have started to become part of brand building. And then the last 10 years I've spent working either for other agencies, or the last 5 years has been as Cheddar, as my own agency. But really, I mean, the one sort of consistent thread through all of that is I didn't really know. And to be honest, I still don't know. Am I going to be doing agency work for, creative agency for the rest of my life until retirement? Who knows? But that's the beauty of it, I guess. I mean, you don't have to have it all figured out. It suits me very nicely for now, but yeah, I certainly wasn't one of those young people who just knew from a very young age, like, this is what I want to do.
I appreciate you sort of your honesty and your openness in that, and it's really sort of, I think, sort of warming to hear that, as you say, that sort of, you know, you've gone, as you say, from sort of career field to career field, and as you say, been in some jobs where you as you say, you thought actually, yeah, this is the one for me. I've made it now, sort of, but then, as I say, you know, you've still, as I say, taken the journey to find other options, and I think that through my experience working with young people, I find it's something that at times they are scared of. People think, a lot of young people think, hang on a minute, if I don't get in this particular career path and stay in it, you know, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I think they are scared a little bit of the unknown, of, as I say, sort of leaving the safety of one particular job route and exploring. So
Mm.
it's really interesting to hear, as I say, sort of how, you know, you've gone through lots of different routes, and as I say, and found, you know, success in them at different levels. But as you say, still been happy to progress and find something that, as you say, makes you happy.
Yeah, you'll always figure it out. I think, you know, it's not a bad thing to be a bit scared of the unknown, but you'll always figure it out. You know, I do. I'm not a big spiritual person, but I feel like, you know, if you work hard and you go after those opportunities, you know, good things will happen.
This leads quite nicely on to my final question, and it might be something you feel you've mentioned already, or sort of, you know, something, you know, you want to go into more detail on. But, you know, you sort of told me about, you know, sort of your career path, your journey, you know, as I say, the different sort of experiences you've had, the successes you've had, maybe mistakes you've made, that kind of thing. And if you were to take all of that into account, if you could go back and speak to, say, sort of, I don't know, let's say 17, 18-year-old Rich, you know, you're about to, as I say, go out on your sort of career journey, what is the one piece of career advice you would give to your younger self based on the experiences you've had?
Oh, God, it's difficult because I'm not a big person to, you know, really have sort of regrets and sort of
Yeah.
think, oh, if I could do it differently. Because I think you can only make the best decision that you feel you can make at the time. And
Yeah.
it's always easy to look back with the benefit of hindsight and think, oh, you know, I shouldn't have spent all that money on that film, or, you know, accepted that job that I knew wasn't right for me. And I, you know, kind of did it anyway. Because you're just making the decisions with the information you have available. The one thing is what I touched upon earlier is I think I was just scared of doing anything for myself, like starting my own business. I went freelance as a filmmaker because that was just the way that, you know, that whole industry worked. So I kind of had some experience of sort of running my own business, having to go out and search for work, but it wasn't done as a proper kind of company with a website and, you know, all this stuff, because that kind of thing just scared me. So I thought, well, you know, I don't understand accounts, like, you know, who does the books every day, every week, every month, tax returns, corporation tax, what's that, VAT, what's that, how do I go about getting new business? You know, how do I make them aware that I exist? I'm not going to have loads of money to
Mm.
spend on advertising. And, you know, all I saw were barriers and obstacles, basically. And I think it took meeting Cassie, actually, because she had already set up the company Cheddar and was doing it as a sort of vehicle for her freelancing. And she had already done, like, put a lot of the building blocks in place, had an accountant, things like that. But I was all kind of like, well, I don't know, because she was like, well, come into business with me. And I was like, I don't know. It's a big risk. It's a lot of responsibility having your own company. And she was like, no, it's not. You just, you know, one day at a time, and you just figure these things out. So, and then it was like, all right, well, let's see if we can get a client, and let's, you know, we'll give it a whirl. We'll see what happens. And we landed a client, and to be honest, she was exactly right. All these little things that I thought were obstacles, you just knock them off one at a time. And I look back now and think, probably couldn't have done it straight out of uni, but I wish I'd done it a lot sooner than I did. Because I think, you know, we've made such progress in 5 years. Imagine where we'd be now if I'd done it 15 years ago. So I think certainly don't be scared of running your own company, but it's a lot of hard work. For me, the pros far outweigh the cons, and not everyone's right for it. You know, a lot of people I speak to are like, I just don't want to run my own company. I'm just happy earning a salary, you know, working as an employee. That's, you know, more work-life balance, because that's one thing. I mean, when you run your own company, you're always on.
Yeah.
There's no real, you know, the whole sort of thing at the moment about switching off and, you know, mental health and work-life balance. And I mean, for me, it doesn't affect my mental health because I want to be in it. It's mine. I care
Mhm.
about it. So this whole idea of switching off totally and forgetting about it is like, I don't want to. I don't want to
Mhm.
switch off. But yeah, like, if you're interested in running your own company, kind of do it sooner rather than later. Don't be scared, and don't, you know, delay like I did.